My name is Lasky. I was president of the Beth Jacob from the period 1999 to 2001. And it was a great honor to sit in that chair during that wonderful time.
Les, you were a longtime resident of Hamilton.
52 years involved in the Beth Jacob. Yes.
And how did it come about that you joined the board?
Oh gosh. I've always grown up with a sense of responsibility to my Judaism, and growing up in a small town, we all pitched in at our local small synagogue to make it prosper, to help, and I was a student at the very beginning in the Hebrew school in the community of Galt, which had B'nai Israel was our congregation, and it has been part of my life. It's sort of a natural extension of being Jewish.
And in terms of joining Beth Jacob, how did that come about?
There was no other alternative. You belonged to a synagogue. You took care of your own spiritual membership, you planned for your children, and you worked towards having a Jewish community that you could thrive in and be proud of.
Do you remember who invited you to come on the board?
No, I don't. To be frank, it seemed to me a natural evolution of joining the board, working through the chairs, and unfortunately one day becoming president.
How did it come about that you joined the executive, or did you go directly to president from board?
No, I went through the executive. Unfortunately, my memory is not as exact as it once was, but it was through the various chairs in premises and finance. My background is finance. It was with that background that I was able, and the organizational skills I had, that I was able to add some value to the deliberations.
How about the process of becoming the president? What went through your mind to take on the job? How did it come about that you accepted those responsibilities?
I had been very active in the Jewish community in Hamilton, and for myself and speaking personally, it seemed almost a natural. I felt I had qualities to offer the congregation, and I was in the same vibe as the congregation was in 2000. We were entering a new century, and there was a great deal happening that made me want to be part of the action.
Are there particular memories that come to mind from your term as president?
Yes, there are. There are several that seem to have been significant. One is that we welcomed a new rabbi. That was a step. We had one for a short period before, and we moved on to a new one. And there is a whole sociological phenomenon of having a new rabbi come into your community while the previous leadership was still in place. And there's an adjustment. You have many people that you, in the congregation and in the leadership, who like things to stay the same, and others who like the things to change. And you needed, as president, to balance those. So welcoming the new rabbi was one. The second point was we were working on a new constitution. The Beth Jacob had been around for many years, and this was its first revision of the Constitution. And that was an arduous task. Again, many cities and voices to be heard from, and we had to bring that all together and forge a new document. We also, in the year 2000, I would like to think it was the opening of the internet age. And I recall many times canvassing our membership. What is your email address? We wanted to begin to communicate through email, internet, set up a web page. And that was a big change from the old print issue. We were running out of scribes, and we couldn't write Torahs any longer, so we moved to email.
How do you feel that worked? How did people in the congregation adjust, number one, to the new rabbi, and number two, to the electronic age?
Adjusting to the new rabbi after having a previous rabbi in the pulpit for so many years was a change. And change is not a natural acceptance, I believe, for most people. So it took time. And subsequently, it did show us that we needed to manage that change much more professionally and efficiently going forward. But it did work, and we grew, and I hope the rabbis who filled the role subsequently grew as well. And what was the other point that you had mentioned?
I think the idea of the adjustment for the congregation to the electronic age.
The adjustment to the congregation was quite, from my memory, remarkable. We had a beginning in the early 2000s, starting to get an aging population, an aging congregation. And the computers weren't at the forefront, but the younger generations were. I think they took to it once people got email addresses and understood how it worked and saw perhaps how it was working. It was helped as well by the introduction of the cell phone, which now is ubiquitous, and that added to the congregation's dependence on getting current information quickly through the email, and now it's part of our life.
Were there any particular events or programs that you can recall during your time as president that stand out?
Yes, we do have some very significant programs at that time. One of the ones that continues, and it was as a result of the leadership and initiative of Gloria Silverman, the wife of our previous rabbi, was Out of the Cold, and that was a program that was developed for feeding the hungry, and it was done in conjunction with other religious organizations and service groups in Hamilton, and served well. And my understanding is that it continues through several places in the city where during, I believe, the winter, I'm not certain about only the rest of the year, but during the winter provided nourishment to the disadvantaged and a opportunity to meet and socialize and become nourished and warm.
How did things work in terms of your interaction with the board while you were the president? Any challenges, any particular experiences that stand out?
I don't recall any challenges. Part of my background was working in teams, administration, delegation, and I saw my role as president not so much as a doer, but as initiator and helper to get the various board members, the executive members, to fulfill the responsibilities of their role. The president isn't a doer. The president is an organizer, a moderator, a change artist through the help of teamwork. And teamwork was one of the very important aspects I tried to bring into the presidency. Other aspects that we did very well were sisterhood Shabbat dinners, congregational Shabbat dinners. We had, I believe it was Cantor Berkovicki was our cantor at that time, and we had study groups with him teaching the skills of davening, Mincha Marav, Shachrit, and getting people who hadn't really read from a Siddur since their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah to come forward and learn new skills. We worked with other charities. We worked within the building itself, trying to get people to help garden. We developed a group called the Green Yarmulkes that did the gardening and tried to save at that time a little bit of money for the synagogue by doing the landscaping outside. I believe it worked out well. It created ownership for our congregation. And without this feeling of ownership and community, we're not able to maintain active participation by our congregants. And we are a family, and we need to keep the family ties strong.
And part of that process, I would expect, me to try and grow the congregation, encourage other people to join.
Very much so.
How did your efforts succeed?
I'm not sure that the efforts really were, as far as growth, overly successful. I think we maintained the status quo. Society changed. Maybe we were changing one direction and not the right one for new membership. I guess as your memory fades, you remember the successes and not the failures. So I'm very good at successes. But I believe we've maintained the status quo, had brought in new membership. We're in competition as a conservative congregation with the other avenues of Judaism. And in North America, I believe the growth of conservative Judaism has not been as marked as that on the both left and right of our practices. And we need to try and work at it. We're not going to solve that problem. It's being shared by Jewish congregations throughout the North America and perhaps the Jewish world. But we need to be aware and provide a welcoming, very welcoming home for people who are looking. We also need to go out and knock on doors, and I think we're doing that under this congregational leadership now, and we'll hope that they will continue and that we will find success. We answer certain needs, need to identify them and let people know we're here.
And let's stay with that. If you were speaking to potential members to come to Beth Jacob, what would you say to them to say, here's why this is a synagogue you should join?
This is a synagogue you should join because it is a family synagogue. It provides, and it can provide, education to children. It can provide, welcomes women into minyanim. It encourages participation. We need to provide programs that create more participation. And I think in some respects we have been successful. We have a very interesting Torah study group led by the rabbi. We're getting more and more people out. Unfortunately, I don't believe we have a lot of young people, and we somehow need to encourage families maybe to have dual memberships, maybe need to answer both needs. And we could work perhaps with other synagogues, maybe on the Reform side, and we need to talk about relevant issues to Jewish families in our current age and in our current times.
Now, recognizing you had involvement in a leadership role in Jewish institutions, the particular experience of being president, was there something that you learned from that? Was there something where you said you particularly grew, or something you encountered that you didn't anticipate you would?
That's an interesting question. I would say yes. There is an intrinsic reward that one gets for volunteering in community activities, in things that you grow close to your heart. My activities through, over the years, Shalom Village, being part of the initial group that put the first shovel in the ground, and helping a home for the Jewish aged in Hamilton, goes back much to my youth when my grandparents lived on Cecil Street at the first Jewish home for the aged in Toronto, and growing up and seeing how that helped their life and helped my family's life, that type of internal reward. Being here at the synagogue during times of bereavement, during times of joy, and the intrinsic values and joy that I received and my wife received and my children, and the bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs of all my children, was exceptionally gratifying to both my wife Beverly and myself, and to my parents. And then at the end, on the Shalom Village side, my mother and also my in-laws spent their part of their travels on the road of life at Shalom Village. So that worked out well. Working in out of the cold and helping people. And that's carried on to the volunteerism that I do today. The rewards are internal. They make you feel Jewish.
If you were to give advice to future presidents, Les, what would you say to them?
My advice is be active in a wide circle of events in both Jewish and secular life. There is much to be gained by helping, and that gives you encouragement. You learn constantly from everything you do. And we never stop learning. We never stop living. And perhaps we want to leave a legacy. And that legacy could be, let's give. Give till it hurts.